Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking through some player props I like on Prizepicks for today's NBA slate on Thursday, April the 24th. We got 3 playoff games today. On Thursday, we got Game 3 of the Knicks and Pistons series, Game 3 of the Thunder Grizzlies series, and then we have Game 3 of Clippers and Nuggets. So, 3-game slate, got some early player props I like for today. Taking a first look at the board on Wednesday night. Got 2 picks that I'm going to give out in this video. We're going to break down these plays, guys. We're going to share why I like them. Now, before we do get started, make sure you guys hit that like button down below. If you do enjoy these Prizepicks videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And if you guys are new to Prizepicks and if you don't have an account over there, sign up. Use that promo code NOAH when you do sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code and place your first $5 lineup. You're going to get $50 in promo funds instantly added to your account. So this is an easy way to start building up your bankroll on Prizepicks. Use that promotion, get those $50 in promo funds, and then use those promo funds to hopefully win some money, build up that bankroll. And again, if you guys don't have an account on Prizepicks, use that code NOAH when you do sign up. And then also, we do have a partnership with Sleeper, so I do want to shout out Sleeper as well. You guys can go sign up for Sleeper. Use promo code NOAH, and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. So you deposit $100, they'll give you an additional $100 to play with. You deposit $50, they'll give you an additional $50 to play with. Just whatever you do deposit, you will get that matched up to $100. So if you guys do want to try out Sleeper, recommend giving them a try. They're a DFS pick'em app, very similar to Prizepicks, really simple, easy to use. Their app's very user friendly, has a great user face, easy to use user face. So you can navigate the app very smoothly. It's really simple. You're just picking more or less on player projections. You're building out your lineup. You can make up to an 8-pick lineup on Sleeper, win up to 100x your money. You can also mix and match sports, so you can do like a 4-pick lineup with 2 NBA picks, 1 MLB pick, 1 NHL pick, whatever you want to do. You can mix and match sports, so it's a lot of fun. You guys should definitely be playing on Sleeper. And if you don't have an account, use that promo code NOAH when you do sign up. But before we do talk through our picks, guys, for Thursday, I want to recap our plays from our video on Wednesday. So we gave out 2 picks Wednesday. Unfortunately, we could not get back-to-back sweeps. We took 2 props. We gave one out on Jaylen Brown over 36 fantasy score, which did hit. Brown had a really good game. I think he finished with like 55 fantasy points, cash relatively sweat-free. Unfortunately, the other play that we took was Draymond Green over 28 fantasy score, which missed. Draymond only played, I think, 30 minutes Wednesday night. Did lose some minutes for blowout. He subbed out with like 5 or 6 minutes left. Didn't play the final 5 or 6 minutes. Had a Draymond type game. He had like 8 points, 5 rebounds, but only had 1 assist. Had 5 turnovers, which really killed him. He did have 3 steals and a block. So he's able to get those steals and blocks kind of like we expected. But the 5 turnovers were a killer. Also, only getting 1 assist definitely hurt. Jimmy Butler got injured in that game Wednesday and didn't return. Jimmy Butler getting ruled out, did that help or hurt Draymond? If anything, it might have hurt him. It might have just hurt the Warriors' offense as a whole. Draymond really, he has good games when the Warriors' offense is like clicking and guys are knocking down shots, because then that's when Draymond can really rack up assists, stuff like that. So, tough beat there with Draymond, not going over his fantasy score line. Still felt really good about that play, and that's one of those plays that I would just take, every time. You'll give me 35, 36 minutes from Draymond. I would bet on him going over that fantasy score line more times than not. But again, lost some minutes from blowout. Wasn't as productive. It is what it is. We'll move on to Thursday, guys. We got 2 picks for Thursday. Let's see if we can get back in the win column and hit both these plays today. So we're going to go back to the fantasy score category. Got 2 fantasy score props I'm liking for today. First one is going to be in the OKC-Memphis game. And I like Jaren Jackson Jr. for more than 31.5 fantasy score. So Jaren Jackson Jr., he can be a very frustrating player to bet overs on, because if you've ever bet overs on Jaren Jackson Jr., this is a player that can get in foul trouble a lot. He does have an issue with fouling. He's a guy that I think averages, in terms of like fouls per game, like he's averaging 3.5 fouls per game this season. He's been able to stay out of foul trouble, though, in this series. Only had 1 foul in Game 1, only had 3 fouls in Game 2, so hopefully that continues. But in Game 1, he only played 28.5 minutes because that game was just a huge blowout. Memphis lost by like 50. All the starters got subbed out super early. So obviously, Jaren Jackson Jr. did not come even close to this fantasy score line in Game 1. But then last game, we did see Memphis play better as a team, put up 99 points. They only quote unquote, only lost by 19 last game. But we did see better games from Ja, better games from Desmond Bain. And Jaren Jackson Jr. also had a better game, 26 points, 6 rebounds. Surprisingly, though, no blocks and no steals last game, which Jaren Jackson Jr. is a guy that has historically been a big steals and blocks guy throughout his career. This season he's averaging 1.5 blocks per game. He's averaging 1.2 steals per game. So this is a player who averages almost 3 steals and blocks per game. That's obviously for fantasy score. If you don't know how fantasy score works on Prizepicks, you do get 3 points per block and per steal. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of these players that can rack up a bunch of steals and blocks. And he's going to be playing at home in Memphis, where they typically, the scorekeeping has been a little bit more favorable for Jaren Jackson Jr. when it comes to him getting steals and blocks. I want to say it was last season when he averaged like the most, I want to say he averaged the most blocks, steals and blocks per game in the league last season. And that was because his home and road splits were like really drastic. Like he was averaging way more steals and blocks at home compared to on the road. And that's just because of the favorable home scorekeeping. But even with that aside, this line on Jaren Jackson Jr. definitely looks a little bit low if we assume he plays his full minutes here. I mean, last game he played 35 minutes, so that's kind of what we can expect for Jaren if he avoids fouls, which obviously is the big if. There's definitely a chance he picks up 2 quick fouls, gets his minutes cut, but that's just not something we can really predict. Although Jaren Jackson Jr. is a player who gets in foul trouble, I can't for sure say, yep, this is absolutely going to be the game he gets in foul trouble, because we just don't know. It's random. It's just variance. I mean, at the end of the day, even the guy a player who fouls a ton, like you just don't know when they're going to get in foul trouble. And so far in this series, knock on wood, Jaren Jackson Jr. has been able to avoid foul trouble. And like I said, he's probably going to play 35, 36 minutes if this game's competitive. You would think with Memphis going back home, that makes it more likely that they are able to keep this game close. Last game, in OKC, the spread was like 14.5. Now with Memphis at home, the spread is only 8.5. So if Memphis keeps it close, we're going to get 35, 36 minutes from Triple J as long as he avoids fouls. And this is a guy who, throughout his career has been a player who averages well over a fantasy point per minute. I mean, this season he's averaging 1.28 fantasy points per minute. He's been actually decent in this matchup too. Like if you look at his game log versus OKC in the regular season, 28 fantasy score in 25 minutes, 39.6 fantasy score in 35 minutes, 41.4 fantasy score in 31 minutes. It's a really tough matchup for both Bane and Ja Morant just because OKC has so many good guards that can defend. SGA's a really good defender. Lou Dort, great defender. J-Dub, good defender. I'm not saying it's a good matchup for Triple J because it's really not, but I think it's a little bit of a better matchup for Triple J than it is for the guards of Memphis. So I think if anyone's going to have success against OKC, it's tough to have success against OKC because they're such a good defensive team. But I think if anyone's in a spot to do it, I think it is a better spot for Triple J than anyone else, any of his other teammates. And this is a player who, again, averages well over a fantasy point per minute. Probably is going to play 35, 36 minutes if this game's competitive. I would have this line more around like 34.5, 35.5. I think 31.5 is a little bit low. I mean, you look at Jaren's props kind of across the board. He's got a 26.5 PRA line, which is obviously that's only 5 points different from his fantasy score. And you got to factor in like the steals and blocks upside that Jaren has. I mean, he's favored to get a block because he has a goblin prop for block. He's favored to get at least 1 steal because his steal prop is a goblin. I mean, if he gets 2 or 3 steals plus blocks, those are really going to start to add up. And there's a chance he could get more than that. Like he could maybe get 3 or 4 or 5 steals and blocks. So he has had those type of games before. So I do like this prop on Jaren Jackson Jr. more than 31.5 fantasy score. And for those of you that maybe aren't on Prizepicks or don't have access to Prizepicks DFS apps and you can't take fantasy score props, a fine alternative that I like on Triple J is taking more than 18.5 points. I think that's totally fine. That's a prop that I definitely like. I would think if Triple J goes over this fantasy score line, he probably goes over this points prop as well. But again, he could go out there and get a bunch of steals and blocks. Maybe he gets some rebounds. So there's a chance he doesn't get 19 points, but still gets over fantasy score. But I think if you can play the fantasy score line, that's my favorite play on Triple J. But for those of you that can't take fantasy score, I do like Triple J for more than 18.5 points. His usage, his role in the offense has been pretty good in this series. He's been getting up a decent amount of shots. I mean, last game he took 18 shot attempts, so he was really aggressive offensively. Obviously, game 1 really struggled, but it's it's hard to look at that because basically the entire Memphis team struggled in game one. But even in game one, I mean, Triple J still got up 13 shot attempts. Like, he's been aggressive offensively in this series. So I think, taking his over on points, 18.5, is a fine alternative to fantasy score if you can't take fantasy score. But that's the first prop I like. Last prop we're going to talk about, we're going to go to the Clippers and Nuggets game. And I like Nikola Jokic for more than 58 fantasy score. So if we look at what Jokic has done in this series, for what it's worth, he's gone over this line in one of their two games. Went over in game one, had a huge game. Pretty sure he had a triple-double in game one, I think, if I remember correctly. Did not have a triple-double. He was 1 rebound shy. But 29 points, 9 rebounds, 12 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, 2 turnovers, 67.8 fantasy score in 46 minutes for Nikola Jokic in game one. And then last game, Jokic did go under by 2 points, had 26 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals, but he had 7 turnovers last game. So that was kind of the big outlier for Jokic, were the 7 turnovers. I mean, if he just has 5 turnovers, he goes over this fantasy score line, but he had 7 turnovers last game. Can't expect Jokic to have 7 turnovers again. I mean, this is a player who averages about 3 turnovers per game, usually like 2 to 3 per game. He's typically a player that doesn't turn the ball over too much. And Jokic, we know, great point per minute player, great producer when he's on the floor, just a guy that does everything. You look at Jokic's fantasy points per minute this season, 1.75. I'm pretty sure that's the best in the league by a decent margin. Like, I think the only player who comes close to Jokic when it comes to like fantasy points per minute, I think the next closest guy is Giannis. But Jokic, 1.75 fantasy points per minute this season. I mean, he's just been, basically the last like 5 seasons, he's been dominant from a point per minute standpoint. 1.58, 1.75, 1.65, 1.68, 1.75. He just does everything when he's on the floor. He scores, he rebounds, he gets assists. He can also get defensive stats. Last game, he did have 3 steals. He had 3 steals and a block in game 1. So, like, he can just stuff the stat sheet in so many ways. And he's going to play a ton of minutes here. In game 1, he played 46 minutes. In game 2, he played 43 minutes. If this game is even remotely competitive, which it should be, 5.5 point spread, Jokic is probably playing 40 to 42 minutes. Could even play more than that. He could play like 43, 44 minutes. And you're going to give me a guy who probably averages 1.6 to 1.7 fantasy points per minute, playing 40 minutes with a 58 fantasy score line. I think this line is definitely a bit low on Jokic. I would have this line more around like 61. Like, I think this line is definitely 2 or 3 points too low on Jokic. Maybe if Jokic went over last game, maybe his line would be a little bit higher today. So I'm actually kind of glad he didn't go over last game, because I think that's maybe one of the reasons that we're getting his line at 58. Again, just going to play so many minutes, super productive player. Matchup against the Clippers on paper might not be the best, but does matchup really matter for Nikola Jokic? Honestly, it probably doesn't. I mean, Jokic has still been great against the Clippers this year. He's played them 3 times. He did have one down game where he only had 16 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, which is a terrible game for Jokic's standards. But the other 2 games this season against the Clippers had 28, 14, and 11, 62.3 fantasy score, 41, 9, and 4, 61.8 fantasy score. So he went over this line in 2 out of 3 games against the Clippers during the regular season. Obviously, in this series, he's over in 1 out of 2 games. But last game, barely went under, had 7 turnovers. A little bit of an outlier there. I think more times than not, Jokic comes away with like maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 turnovers. But 7 turnovers is something you can't really expect to happen again. So I do like Jokic for more than 58 fantasy score here. And these are going to be our 2 props, guys, for today on Thursday. So we got 3 games Thursday. Gave you guys some early plays I like. Do want to say for the Jokic prop, so for those of you that can't take fantasy score on Jokic, I think my next favorite play would definitely be more than 48.5 PRA. Would think if Jokic goes over this PRA line, he probably goes over fantasy score as well. I mean, if you look at his fantasy score, it's green, green, red, green, red. You look at PRA, pretty sure it's identical. So no, red, green, red, green, red. So he did go over fantasy score against Sacramento, but went under PRA, and that's most likely because, he had 4 steals in that game. Typically can't expect Jokic to get 4 steals, but usually he can get you like maybe 1 or 2 steals. But I would think if he goes over fantasy score, he probably goes over the PRA line. So I think my next favorite play on Jokic would be more than 48.5 PRA. But I also don't mind taking more than 26.5 points. I think that's a fine alternative. Jokic in this series over his points prop in 1 out of 2 games. He's just going to be super aggressive offensively. We know that. but he's also a guy that can rebound incredibly well. Gets a bunch of assists too. PRA would be the next best play, I think, to take on Jokic, besides fantasy score if you were unable to take fantasy score. But if you can take Jokic at 58 fantasy score, I like that prop the most on him. So, yeah, guys, that's what I'm liking. Two plays for this 3-game slate on Thursday. But as always, guys, appreciate you watching. Appreciate your support. Make sure that you guys do hit that like button down below if you enjoy these Prizepicks videos. If they help you, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And if you guys don't have an account on Prizepicks, go sign up. Use that promo code NOAH. When you play your first $5 lineup, you're going to get $50 in promo funds instantly added to your account. So check out Prizepicks if you have not yet. But good luck tonight, guys. Thanks for watching as always. Let's win some money tonight, and I'll see you guys in the next video.